Welcome to the Getting Real with Hilary show, where ordinary heroes tell extraordinary stories during unique and never been heard before conversations with your host, Hilary Arno Burns. Hilary's unique listening and way of asking questions results in conversations that aren't usually talked about, so you can create the life that you really want but are afraid you can't really have. We are demonstrating the greatness in the human spirit and creating a world where we all reclaim our birthright of joy, happiness, purpose, and passion. Now, here's your host, Hilary Arno Burns.
Welcome to the Getting Real with Hilary show. And today we have a very special guest. We have Tania Badiyi. She is a mother, a healing guide, and a trauma specialist. And you're going to want to hear her story and how it relates to your life. So welcome, Tania.
Thank you, Hilary.
Great to see you. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Okay. So I know, you had a cancer diagnosis and that kind of impacted your whole life, right? It changed the course of it. What would you want to tell us? You said you were from Russian and French background of resilient, unstoppable forefathers who reinvented themselves and achieved extraordinary success over the course of a century. Is there anything you want to say about them to show people where you came from?
Yeah. So just looking at my family, looking at my ancestors, they had to leave everything. They were, by the time they left Russia, in the early 1900s, they had an art collection that was bigger than any museum. My grandmother had started the Society for Free Aesthetics, where it was a beautiful salons where people gathered in Russia, and they left everything, and then came to France and reinvented themselves. And then my grandmother lost her husband, and at that era, she was a privileged, educated woman that never worked, completely reinvented herself. And
where did she lose him? Did she lose him on the way to France?
When they came to Paris, he didn't quite make it. He ended up dying. Yeah. And then seeing how my dad, who was a young man at that time, what he went through and how that impacted me. Even though he never said anything, I picked up the energetics of that and the lack of safety and things like that. So
how old was he at that time?
He was a teenager. And he went to see this dad who was such an influential man in Russia sitting in a pauper's hospital because they had started their life again. And my grandmother just took it all, and she started a school for manners for girls. She got the French Legion of Honor for her contributions to France.
Wow.
Unstoppable, right? And then
did she get remarried?
She did not.
No, wow.
She did not. And then the Second World War started. Boom, they had to leave everything and come to the United States and reinvent themselves again. And my mom and dad met here, even though their families kind of knew of each other over there. And
did they know each other in Paris or?
And in Russia, same, yeah. My grandfather was like the first transformational impact on me, because anything that happened, he would turn it around. So my father was in Paris, was a young film critic, and my grandfather reinvented himself as a film producer in Paris. And my father panned his movie. So my grandfather picked up the phone and said, "Call this young fella over. I have to have a talk with him." They became best friends.
Wait. I'm confused. So your grandfather
from the other side.
Okay. I'm like, okay, how was he doing that if he was dead? Okay.
He passed away. Not his father, but his future father-in-law that he did not even know was going to be his father-in-law.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And so anyway, they became best friends.
And that's how he met his daughter.
Then, not yet. It was only when they ended up, because my grandfather also parked his car in somebody's parking spot that he was not aware was somebody else's. He got very upset with him. This is in Paris. And then they became best friends, and he was a pivotal influence on them coming to America and getting their first jobs.
Wow. And when did they come? Before the war? I mean, how did they know to escape? A lot of people did not.
They did. My grandfather had a feeling. He just took. So they had a house in Étampes, which was a chateau. They had a chateau in Étampes. They harbored a lot of people there. And then when it got really bad, it was an 18-room chateau. They took the car that had the most gas, and they put the dogs in, and they went to Portugal. And they then took the ship, and came over to America. My grandfather had a suspicion that it was happening, so he took his son and sent him ahead with all of the like furniture and things like that they could take. And they arrived to America totally like, we don't know what's going to happen or how we're going to do it, or do we even know the language, and started and reinvented themselves.
Wow.
You know, and there's an article actually in the newspaper that says about my parents, fast forward, met at a printing company that man in France created, that the wrong parking spot.
Over there in Paris?
No, he came ahead here. Wow. He now has a printing. He gives a job to my mom. My dad happened to be working there. They start working there and then start their own company with his blessings. And everybody was telling them, you can't do this. There's so many huge companies here doing this already. You're never going to make it, blah, blah, blah. They became the top printing and design firm for luxury cosmetics and perfumes. So I learned, you know, it influenced me with anything's possible. You just have to like really want it.
You know, it's, you know, there were so many people that waited and didn't leave when it would have been much easier. Do you know what I mean? So good for them for trusting their gut, you know.
The gut is so important.
Yeah. There was one woman, her family waited. I think they were in Germany. They had to go backwards through Russia and China and Korea, you know, like took them 3 months. I mean, just all these different legs because they waited till the last minute. Almost out and were, you know, terrified that, yeah. So anyway, so Portugal to US sounds like they did it at the right time before it got hard. Wow.
They did. And, you know,
incredible, really.
I wanted to mention one thing is that when my mom turned 100, the New York Times did an article on her, and they asked her, like, what's the difference between COVID, because it was during COVID, and going through the wars? And she said, you know, during the war, we knew there was a safe harbor, but with COVID, it was global. And we didn't know what this danger was. It was like, remember in the beginning, people didn't know how we got it. Yeah. So
interesting, right? But the war hadn't started yet when they were leaving, or had it?
The war had not started yet.
Wow. So your grandfather, that's amazing.
They were starting to, you know, the Germans were starting to come, and my mom told stories of like running to get food, and, you know, it was already like literally, I think they left just as they.
But so that was your father's. No, your father didn't have a father. So when you say your grandfather, was your mother's father?
My mother's father.
And did your father's mother come too? With them? Like, so they were
two separate, within 3 months of each other, on the same ship, but within 3 months of each other.
Wow.
Yeah.
So they came from Russia. They knew each other in Russia, and then they met. They were, I guess it was like a group. They met.
Circle. Yeah. And, you know, that's what kept them going. Without the stuff, it was their relationships.
Yeah.
you know?
Wow. Community. Yeah, community.
Community.
Amazing. Okay. All right. So then your parents got married and then you were born. Where were you born? In New York?
I was born in New York City.
Sisters and brothers?
I had a sister that was killed when I was 9. And that was hugely right at the height of my parents' business.
How was she killed?
In a car accident. Horrible, horrible story. The story that every parent is so afraid to hear in the middle of the night, a call at 4 a.m.
Who was she with at 9 years old?
No, I was 9. She was 18. Yeah.
And how did it happen? Do you know?
So she was just with us. She was trying to finish college in 2 years instead of 4. And she wanted to go back to Washington, where she was going to school, to participate in a fair. And they all got together and said, hey, why don't you take my car and you take my car? And the guy wasn't driving his car. It was an Austin Healey, which is a very fast car. And he didn't know the speed of it. And it was a convertible and it just flipped. Yeah, it was really, really rough. And my parents were, I have to just give a little parentheses. My parents had really, a couple of years before that, hit the top of their career. They were on the Johnny Carson show.
Wow.
My mom cut Johnny Carson's tie off to make a bow for the package without even telling him. And it was like hysterical because he went, is this not your wife? And ran after my mom and cut her hair. It was
on the show.
Yeah, on the show. So they are, perfumes and cosmetics was luxury then. It was a luxury lifestyle. It was a luxury everything about it, and it was owned not by pharmaceutical companies, but by like Elizabeth Arden was actually there, and everything came to a stop when this happened because people didn't know how to deal with them. How do you deal with this kind of tragedy? So they had the tragedy of losing their daughter, their firstborn, and their business is like going. And so I lost not only my sister, but my parents.
Wow.
And I went into a freeze state that I don't think I realized I was in such a freeze state. That was, when you look at what are the things that cause disease, I learned when I got diagnosed from cancer that cancer is not something to be afraid of or to fight. It's something to learn from. It's such a wake-up call. It was a wake-up call for me to look back and see, because I didn't remember these traumas. Like I knew I had lost my sister, but I didn't know the impact on my body and what my body was holding. It was more than what I could process here from the neck up in therapy and all of that. I had the insights, I had all of that, but I hadn't really allowed the trauma that lives in the body to heal. That is at the source of all disease.
And how did you learn that?
And I
may, but tell the listener.
Yeah. So I learned it.
Like there you are, you're diagnosed with cancer.
Here I am. I'm walking through the park and I get the phone call with my daughter. We're holding hands and we're like, oh my God, I hope the news is not going to be bad. And they say, they didn't even like cushion it. They just went, you have cancer. I was like, and but there was something inside me that when I went to see the doctors and they were like, okay, here's the protocol. But I was like, but how do I get to the bottom of this? And they were like, we don't know what you're talking about. We can give you some, it's a rogue cell. We don't know. It's not genetic. We did the genetic tests and you can do some, we can send you to do some meditation and some acupuncture to help you with the symptoms, but we really don't know. And that's when I really felt like, wait a second, I want to get to the bottom of this. I want to know what is at the root cause of this. And I didn't know who the teacher was going to be or what I was going to learn, but I felt like this was a radical invitation to live life fully and to really get past whatever it is that was causing this. And so, when the student is ready, the teacher will come. I was watching Gabor Mate talk about, because he's a medical doctor who was head of palliative care for 7 years, and he saw that you could trace back any disease back to an undealt with trauma.
Wow.
And then I saw that
he saw that when he was in charge of palliative care. That's how we
because he had been also a family doctor, so he could see these people that he had seen all throughout now be in palliative care, and he saw the I can't think of the word, the unfolding of their life and what was in their life that now caused them to develop this disease. He saw the patterns.
Because he knew them for a while.
Yeah, he knew them their whole life.
So he could see, okay, they had heart disease. That's from this.
Yeah. That you could trace it back to an undealt with emotion and undealt with trauma.
Wow.
And then University of San Francisco came out with a study in 22 that says that. That says that all disease can be traced back to an undealt with emotion. And that if we don't deal with the emotion and healing it, we're less likely to absorb Western medicine, which that's huge, right? When in some cases, not at all. I thought that was...
Again, all disease can be traced to
an emotion that got pushed down.
Oh, an emotion.
And dealt with.
Wow.
And so I began to get resource for everybody. I dove into Gabor Mate's approach. I wanted to be able to not only help myself heal, but also help others heal, because it's not just if you're diagnosed. It's what I learned is that where it started, was when I felt as a little girl any threat of belonging, I chose belonging to my authentic self. I'd do anything to belong, right?
So is that you had said you had them 3, 5, 9 at 17. So which one?
Okay, so it started even at 3. My parents, because they were so busy, took me to my grandparents. So I was away from them. I didn't have an attuned... So trauma isn't just the bad things that happened to us, but the good things that didn't, was what I learned.
Oh, good things that didn't.
And that would just blew my mind. So I learned that like the things that we need to be cherished, unconditionally cherished. We need to have an attuned, regulated adult that is there to help us regulate our nervous system, because our nervous system isn't developed enough. We don't know what to do with it when our parent loses it. They might be having a hard day, but we look at it like, okay, I'm not going to say my parent having issues, because then that would really give an unsafe environment. I'm going to say I did something wrong, because then I can at least change and I can adapt and I can do something to make this calm down.
Wow.
Or avoid it in the future. So my grandparents were, did the best that they could, but they were elder.
And this is your mom's?
My mother's parents. And my parents had gotten them this beautiful house in the country to retire into and brought me there thinking fresh air, awesome. But my grandfather,
like what state were you in?
New York, out on all the way out, like 2.5 hours out on the tip of Long Island.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And so I was not socialized. When I went to kindergarten, I barely knew how to socialize, and I didn't even speak English. They taught me Russian and French. They figured she'll learn English.
How long were you with your grandparents?
Till it was time to go to kindergarten.
For 2 years?
Yeah. More. I was until 4 or 5 that I went to kindergarten.
Oh, when did they send you out there?
When I was just months old.
Oh.
Yeah.
And your sister was okay because she was older. So
And she was older. She was with them. She was going to school.
Wow. Oh, so
Yeah.
you never had English speaking friends.
No.
And then you came back to the city for school not speaking English?
Yeah. I remember walking in, and I came in the middle of the school year. And so everybody was already, knew each other. And I was like, okay. And so from there, I created, I don't belong. I'm on the outside. I was terrified. I didn't know what was going on. But even before that, you said, at 3, I had an event where it was lightning and thunder, and I was so scared. And I get at my grandmother's house, and I run to her, and she says, that's God being angry with you. You must have done something wrong. I was so scared.
Wow.
So scared, but push that down, right?
Right.
And so what I want to say is that, yes, there's all kinds of events leading up to it that I could say, but what happens, what I learned from my education during this time is that when I push down all of these things rather than being authentic and the emotions get pushed down, I separate from myself. Trauma is a separation from self. So it's not safe to be me. I'm going to become something, the funny one, the smart one, the make sure I'm good enough one, all of that. And it impacts us physically, which I didn't know. It impacts the telomeres at the end of our DNA. It shreds them. Like if you have like the end of your shoelaces, you have that little plastic piece that keeps them together. That's like the telomeres at the end of our DNAs. And when we separate from ourselves, when we have the trauma and the stress from not being ourselves, it starts to shred at that, and it impacts our immune system. And eventually we start to develop anxiety, depression. Depression is pushing down. Inflammatory diseases, all of that.
But doesn't that happen to all of us?
All of us, because we live in a society where, I call it like soul hygiene, because we live in a society where we are not, we've forgotten that it's important to have a attuned adult to help us develop a attuned, normal, nervous system. And we all disconnect from ourselves.
Right.
Hasn't been, it's something that we've been conditioned. We've been conditioned to live in this matrix of this is what's right. This is what you need to do. And we go to the right, we perform well in school or not. And then we get to the job that our parents or society thinks is the right thing. And then we go, why am I feeling so heavy? Or why am I developing these diseases or discomforts? And we get pills, and then we develop other ones. So I was so excited in a way. My life depended on it. I felt like I had a pistol aimed at me, but that I learned this.
So did you just happen to find him?
I just happened to find him.
Because when I was writing my first book, I also I listened to him on a podcast. I don't know if I got his book. I don't know how I did it, but in my book, I said, when I was small and they told me not to be upset. So, okay. So what he says is you have to please the person caring for you was your grandparents, or they'll leave and you're dependent on them. So you have to become who you need to be so that they won't abandon you. So you become that false self.
Yeah.
You don't think about it. You just do. It's a matter of survival, right?
Exactly.
So we all have it, and that's what, but at the time, when was that? It was around 2012. He was talking about for sensitive children. I didn't know that he was talking about everybody at that point. Do you know what I mean? Like that we all have. So I always knew, they would always say, well, you're too sensitive. Don't be upset. You're just too sensitive.
Oh,
and I would be like, oh my God, something's wrong with me because I am upset. And I'm not supposed to be, so like there was my real self, right? That's how Getting Real with Hilary when I decided to bring back that girl, who, and say it anyway. But anyway, so you happened to find him. I think you took a course with him, right? Or something?
I took this year-long professional training.
Wow. So what did that training allow you to do to help?
The training is over 300 hours of you actually become that person, that approach to being able to get to the core of not only. So I had been, like you and I share that we've been mindset experts, and I was really, like, well, look. So I was going, there must be something wrong with me that I developed cancer. I mean, like, maybe I'm not such a great mindset expert then, right?
People are mindset expert. That's amazing. Yeah.
I was like, well, maybe there's something not right here. And I felt ashamed. And I was like, and so, so his approach is compassionate inquiry, and it is a magnificent approach in healing that which is at the core of the beliefs that we created. So it's not just the insight, but that maybe insight is necessary but not sufficient, but really getting to the core of it. And what I learned also is that the medicine is not even so much the approach, it's the relationship, that we don't heal alone. There's something in the relationship between us that we create that allows the autonomic nervous system of the person that's in fear or grief to switch to rest, digest, and heal. When they can feel safe enough and have the compassion to experience, not know, but experience their truth in the present moment. And that goes beyond the conscious mind. It's in the subconscious mind. So when you and I did a little, test drive of this, there were things that was in your body. I'd ask you, what does that pain want to say? It's right. That's the core wound. And the core wound gets healed when it is witnessed in a beautiful, unconditional, loving space that it needed back then and that it didn't get back then.
So it's as simple as, not that it's simple, because it's not simple to do, but, so like I had a pain below my rib, and we were talking to that pain. What is it trying to say? And allowing that
to be witnessed. Yeah.
Witnessed.
Yeah.
Freeze it.
Freeze it when it's witnessed.
Wow. So obviously, you have to be a safe space for people and all that. Now, who helped you with yours when you were going through that?
So I put myself into the course.
And that was when?
And we had practicums, which is somebody played the therapy. And these were all mainly therapists in the student body. So I had therapists and we'd switch off and we would we'd practice, and then we do it under, the facilitator watching us and guiding us. And I practiced maybe twice a day at that point, every day practically. And
in the course, or you were doing it on your friends?
Well, we had to do practicums outside of the course and between the courses.
Wow.
Yeah. And I did that. I also studied theta healing, which is the theta brainwave that is the closest to, the subconscious mind. And I studied internal family systems.
Wow.
Yeah.
Now, was this what? I know we're going to have to go to a commercial break in a minute, but what were you doing before all this happened?
So before all this happened, I was a mindset coach. I was helping people get beyond their struggles.
Oh, okay. So you were already in the coaching business.
I was already in the coaching business, and both my clients and I felt like, yeah, we're living at a better, percentage than we were before, but there was still something there when we were really like quantum leap. There was something still, resisting, and it became heavy lift to keep creating who we are rather than connecting to our truths.
Wow. And before that, before you were a mindset coach, what did you do? Were you ever in the corporate? You taught acting.
I taught acting. And that's attracted me because of the authentic communication.
Yeah. Interesting.
I taught acting. I did study to be after acting, I studied to be a corporate coach. And I led entrepreneurial seminars.
Wow. Well, you keep reinventing yourself as well. Amazing.
Also an interior designer.
You were?
I was in LA. Yeah.
Oh my God. Okay. All right. So, all right. I have one question.
Yeah.
How, and I know you could say none of my business, but I'm always worried. I'm always thinking about, how did you support yourself when you were going through the course or you were still doing your mindset when you were doing the course with?
I couldn't work.
Oh, because of the cancer?
When I was under chemo and all of that. Oh my gosh. And then my daughter got diagnosed 6 months into it. And I was the sole caregiver for my 2-year-old mom.
She's still alive.
She just passed away last March. So I was taking care of, it was like the universe was saying, okay, we're going to squeeze you. None of your ways of adapting are going to work here. It's time for a big, breakthrough. So I was being evicted. And talk about, all of that.
So obviously you weren't supporting yourself. Okay.
And I have to tell you, I manifested walking into the park a half a block away from here and saw a man standing there that I had never seen before. And we started talking because I couldn't find, the court said that there was no more funding for pro bono lawyers. And I was really like, what am I going to do? He was like, I just finished working for the district attorney. I am on leave right now and I'm doing pro bono work. And I'm like, really? What kind? And he said, landlord tenant. And I was like,
But you just happened to run out.
I'd never seen him before. It was like a divine intervention.
How did you start talking to him? You just did.
We had our dogs and we were like, yeah. He's standing there with his dog, and it's been a year now, and it's so beautiful. It's so beautiful.
Now, are you in a relationship with him too?
No, he's married and has.
Okay, but he helped you stay in your apartment?
Yeah.
That's, divine intervention, right?
Yeah, and I, learned from... my thing was that I always was waiting for the other shoe to fall, that I was afraid, right? From the way that I grew up, like not knowing what was going to happen next. And I really learned that I am protected, that the universe is there to protect me, because this was just, wow, and even when
how did he get you to stay if you couldn't pay?
Well, it's still happening right now. So I shouldn't really talk about the details.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
But he's still, so it's in court. They didn't evict you, obviously.
No.
Wow.
No, they haven't. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So, okay. Let's go to the commercial. We'll be right back and we're going to continue the conversation. All right. Be right back.
Has social-emotional learning become just one more thing on your teachers' plates? Do teachers and students both find it boring and ineffective? Then bring Kikori to your school. Kikori transforms classrooms through experiential SEL activities that help students play, reflect, connect, and grow. Even better, students say it's more fun than recess. Schedule a no-obligation conversation at kikoriapp.com/bringkikori. KIKORI.
Do you ever feel like you can't say what you really want to say? Or that you're stuck or in a holding pattern in your relationships, career, personal life, or finances? Are there things you want in life that you've given up on? Are you resigned that this is as good as it's going to get? If you answered yes to any of these questions, then Hilary Burns, host of the Getting Real with Hilary show, has the solution you need. Hilary is a published author of 3 books and has a program called the Getting Real process. This process frees you from what is holding you back, allowing you to create a life you love. Don't believe it? It is hard to believe that it could work, isn't it? The proof is that hundreds of Hilary's clients have used the Getting Real process and are now free to create whatever they want in relationships, career, finances, enjoying life, or just loving themselves more. So go to realtalkwithhilary.com and order Hilary's book, Real Talk, and set up a conversation.
Thank you, as always, to our sponsor, kikoriapp.com. It's an experiential let me try that again. Experiential social emotional learning platform that is taking off in schools because teachers need help with that kind of thing, the SEL. And this has the children experience it. It's not book learning. They're really experiencing being compassionate, being connected, being social, and especially during COVID, we lost that. So if you'd like to find out more, go to kikoriapp.com. That's KIKORI app.com and schedule a demo. You won't regret it. It's an up and coming startup that can really alter what's going on in schools for our children. And it's very needed right now. And then I'll go fast about my books. Just what we're talking, maybe it's more mindset, but still good. It's still a start. Your Bullshit is Your Blessing was my 3rd book, and it's how to stop fixing yourself and start having fun, how to go from the dark side to the light. It's tools and techniques that I found after I realized I had been on the dark side with my first book, The Second Piece of French Toast. That's my memoir. If you want a really good story, very courageous, very real. If marriage was my dream, why was I numbing myself? Oops. Very good question. It's one that I looked at and really found out a lot, and also found out that I wasn't speaking up. So what did I do? I wrote another book called Real Talk, and this has the Getting Real process, and this subtitle is How to Say the Things You've Never Said so you can have the things you've always wanted. And this was not easy for me, but I thought, you know what? If it was hard for me, it might be hard for other people. Let me write a book about it. So you can find this one at realtalkwithhilary.com. You can find all of them on Amazon. And you know what? Check them out. That's all I'm going to say. And now we're going to bring back Tania. All right. So question, how are you with the cancer, and how is your daughter with the cancer?
So I am good. I am, this was another thing, is that I was up against the corporate of the medical world. And while I'm so grateful for their advances, I saw that the doctors were this is my opinion, what I observed, right? That they were dominated by the corporate, by how long they can be with a client, with a patient. They had, a nurse told me, I didn't know, that they had to account for how much money they're bringing into the hospital every quarter. So that impacts how they're going to, what procedures they're going to have me do. And so I had 2 rounds of chemo. They had one first type of chemo, then I had a surgery, and they found a different cancer there. I had another chemo again, which was a really rough one. But I was like, we're going to do this. And then they said, okay, now we're going to be doing XYZ, like a year of immunotherapy, which sounded really good. But then I found out it can cause other cancers. It can cause, damage to your heart, damage to your lungs. I mean, on and on. And I was like, but why do I need it? And they were like, well, it's protocol. And I was like, that's not good enough.
Money protocol, yeah.
It's not good enough. I know. And then literally my daughter was worried for me. She said, let's go anyway, do the radiation. And I laid down and my whole body started reacting. And I was like, I can't do this. I'm going to have to come back, or I'm going to need more information. But my whole gut and body was telling me, absolutely not. I've had enough. And I went to have, testing afterwards, and test is fine. There's nothing there, and I'll keep testing. And I'm still exploring, other ways of getting the body back to the way that it was, because we got rid of this. Now let's look at what caused it and what it needs to regain its balance and its strength and the way that it works. Because we all have cancer cells going through us on the daily, but the body knows how to get rid of them. Right? So when it goes, offline and it's not doing that, we found out that a lot of it is emotional. But there's also other things that could be going out of, the stress is number one, So that's, I don't know if I answered your question.
It sounds like you're okay. And what about your daughter?
My daughter is fine. She's doing she's young enough that they are doing hormone suppression. And she's also looking for other ways because it's really messing with her.
And what kind of cancer did you have?
Breast cancer.
And what did she
also?
Breast.
But not related, different ones.
And did you do your process with her? Did you practice on her, the Gabor?
I haven't.
You haven't?
No, I haven't, because that's one of the things that Gabor was, and they talk about, like, she could do it with someone else, but that it's not a good idea to do it with your family.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. There's just a lot going on,
Right. Interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So now that we know that, you guys are both. How many years ago were you diagnosed?
I was diagnosed in 22. So 2 and change.
Wow. So very recently. Okay. So all this has happened within a couple of years. Amazing. Okay. So why don't you talk about your programs and what you're doing and what you're offering? What do you think? Unless there's something else you want to cover.
I'm with you.
Okay.
I'm with
you. Can talk about my session if you want, just to get some taste. Okay. So before the interview, Tania was like, let's do something. So I was like, okay, I don't really know what I'm doing. And then, she put me through a meditation, and then she asked me what my body was saying, and I was having this pain. And she was just so patient and loving and compassionate that what came up was something from my childhood where I didn't feel safe. Right? Am I missing?
No, that's,
And how I was always bracing myself for what was going to happen. And it was stressful and a lot of energy, negative energy and all that, never really feeling safe or protected in my life. Because, God rest his soul, it was my father who had surprised me one time and like that. So we released that. And there's something also, if I can share, that lately, like I went to the doctor and she wanted to give me shots or, and I was just like, no, thank you. And she was like, well, I said, I just don't want to do that. And she was like, well, there's more crap in your coffee than there is in these shots, and I was like, okay, thank you, but so even though I could say no, I'm getting better at no and all that, I still think, am I wrong? And then that, when I get it, like I did this detox, and then I had, one of my future guests was saying, well, you shouldn't be eating that. You should be eating this. And and I was just like, like it kind of wrecks with my mojo, because here I am trusting this other process. And then all of a sudden I get more input and then I start doubting. Do you know what I mean? There's something about that ruins my peace. Like it gets into my mind. Are they right? Should I be listening to them? It creates the doubt. So anyway, there's probably more work to do about that. I don't know.
Yeah, but what I'm hearing is that that's coming from your mind, and then the mind gets overwhelmed. When we're connected to the body, it becomes like the mind is committed to the story, the body is committed to the truth. And when we're really connected to our truth, the answers come up,
So how, I know we would do it with you, but like I'm feeling pressure right here just talking about it.
Yeah.
So that's where we would look and see.
We would allow some room for that pressure, and just let it just be, and bring some curiosity and some compassion to it, and just allow it to unfold, because we're not conditioned to really know, to look, but something starts to evolve as we give it some space. And comes up, and it's amazing because it's not from the head, it's
right
here. Is that something that you want to do right now, that you want to experience?
I mean, we could. Well, we have, looking at the time, maybe we have 9 minutes left.
Okay.
I don't know if we could do it in a few minutes. I think it would be valuable for me. I don't know if it would be for others, probably, just to see what happens.
Sure.
Okay,
so just I want to invite you to, and it's all, client, with permission of the client, right?
So you know what? I'm just going to set a timer for 5 minutes, and then at 5 minutes
time
after, wherever we are, so I can let go of the time. Okay, good. Perfect.
Okay. I want to invite you to just, notice the internal terrain of what's going on there in your chest. And of course, we kind of skip the beginning parts and get right up to that because we just had a session. And just if you want to share with me what's going on, if there's any.
Well, it's kind of like all these, what it feels like is all these people running around going, you have to get this right. You have to get this right. You have to get this right.
All this.
Yeah. Right. And now I'm getting nervous. Like, whoa, I don't know how. I don't know how to get it right. What do I do? What do I do? It's like anxiety.
And how old is that voice that I don't know how old does it feel?
It's young, between 2 and 5, I would say.
Between
something bad is, I got to get this right, or something bad. It's the same, something bad's going to happen. And I got to try to not have it come. I got to keep it away.
You got to keep it away. It's like, okay, so let's just allow a little, with your permission, a little space around that. Noticing the sensations. Is there any emotion that you feel around it?
Well, I kind of allowed, it was fear, but I allowed it, which I don't normally do. I allowed it.
Yeah.
And now I feel peace.
And now you feel peace.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. By allowing it, which I don't normally do, I usually go, oh no, like I put up the thing, got to stop this. And then I don't allow it to move through. Right.
Beautiful.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. And if you're
mental, I don't have to analyze it.
You don't have to analyze it. Wow. You don't have to analyze it. It's, yeah.
Wow.
I noticed you're like, did you feel like emotions coming out?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was crying. I mean, tears.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, it was like traumatic when they're all running around going, you got to get this right. I mean, it was like terrible feeling, but that's what I do when I get conflicting inputs.
Yeah.
I get into that fright thing, you know?
Thing. Yeah.
It's a terrible feeling. I think I have to get the answer right. And I don't know the answer. It's two different stuff.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And like if you hadn't gotten, that peacefulness right away, what's going on for you right now? I saw you like kind of
It's exhausting.
it's exhausting.
And it's terrifying because I don't know. I don't do research. I'm not a researcher. So I get two inputs and that thing happens.
And it triggers that
terror.
Yeah, that terror. And normally
terrible is going to happen if I don't pick the right thing. But how do I pick the right thing? Like I couldn't get past that because I was in froze mode.
Yeah. And because that goes back to when you were 2 or 3, you didn't know back then how to. And that's the part of you that's coming up now and going, I don't know how. I don't know how.
Right. But I actually did.
But you actually do. And what I would have asked you if you didn't get the piece yet is what does that part that doesn't know, that's panicking, what does she need?
Yeah, she wants someone to help her.
She wants somebody to help her.
Yeah, she was all alone, like frozen.
Yeah. And so we begin to have a relationship with her of like letting her know that you're here. You are the adult, author, free books, mother, business owner that knows, that's connected with her wisdom.
Right. And I could say, thank you for your input, but I'm not looking for it right now. I'm good with right here, like I don't have to take it in.
Absolutely. You don't have to.
You know what? Maybe in a few months, let's have this conversation. I don't need to have it right now. I mean, that would be a grown-up way of doing it instead of like, what do I do now? Yeah, instead of paralyzed by something. Yeah, wow. Wow, thank you. Woo! All right, well, there's our timer. So now I have to switch from, it was like I was on the playground with everyone running around, So coming out of the playground and back to show host. So, wow. Well, thank you, Tania. This has been really, I think impactful. I think so valuable for people because we all have this. And, if you want to find Tania, we'll have it in the show notes. But how would they sign up?
We have, I'll give my website. We have any questions that anyone has, they can book a call with me to ask me anything, get connected. I have a Know Thyself one-on-one offering. And then I have a Body EQ small group offering where anyone who is frustrated with dieting gets to the core.
Wow.
Of why they are that whole and release the vicious cycle of dieting, will never have to diet again. Was my first client. I haven't dieted or weighed myself in 30 years.
Wow. All
Right.
It's amazing. Phenomenal. All right. And we'll have how to find Tania in the show notes. What's your website? Just tell us real quick.
It's my name. It's TaniaBadiyi.com.
Okay, TANIA
HARLEY.
Okay.
B as in boy, A, D as in David, IYI.com.
Okay, awesome. All right. And then what would you like to leave people with? Like, what is your vision for the world? If this could really take off, and how would you see the world?
I would see the world interconnected knowing that we share a brain, we share a nervous system, we're there for each other, we heal together, not alone. And yeah, I really see people waking up from the matrix that we're in of needing to do things because of the way that society's values are, reconnecting to our truth, and having the joyful, fulfilled lives that it's our birthright. Everyone has beautiful, incredible gifts, that become evident when they reconnect with themselves.
Wow. Oh, well, thank you so much. This has been a gift to me and to the listeners, and just beautiful, really, that you used, a diagnosis to heal yourself. And now we're helping others. So thank you.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for watching this episode. I started getting real with Hilary when I discovered that I was a people-pleasing, pleasant phony and wanted to be more of my real self. We can grow together if you will like the show, subscribe to my channel, and share this episode with your friends and family so that we can have a world that's more real.